Meeting to order. Welcome to the April 22nd Owen Sound City Council meeting, and we have just completed our in-camera portion of our meeting this evening, and I welcome everyone here. We do not have a faith blessing this evening, so I will invite those members present to join in a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you. Are there any additional items for tonight's agenda? Councillor Twall.
Just briefly, Your Worship, an update on meetings that I had 2 weeks ago today on your behalf at Queen's Park with members of the NDP and Conservative Caucus and with policy advisors from the Premier's office.
Councillor Chamberlain?
Yes, if I could just talk about the McCoy Tannery Senior Center in relation to partnering with the city for a check presentation.
Any other members of council? Members of staff? Seeing none. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. Do you have any members of council with pecuniary interest to declare at this time? Seeing none. Confirmation of minutes, please, from April 8th and April 15th.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Body, that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held on April 8th, 2013, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. April 15th, minutes, please.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Twaddle, that the minutes of the special council meeting on April 15th, 2013, as printed, be adopted.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We are now seeking a motion to move council and committee of the whole, please.
Thank you again. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Body, that City Council now move into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We're now committee of the whole. We do not have any public meetings this evening. We do, however, have a lot of guests, and it's great to see so many people out on what I might dare I say a spring evening. We would like to invite Rodney Rodgers, the chair of the DIA, Downtown Improvement Area Board of Management, and Carolyn Bigley, the administrator of the Owen Sound Downtown Improvement Area Board of Management, up to the podium. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. 40 years ago, a selected group of business owners, merchants got together with a passion and a vision for the downtown and formed the first Owen Sound DIA. Under Owen Sound City Bylaw 1973-5, on April 23rd, the DIA was created in Owen Sound. The first DIA, or BIA as it was sometimes called in Canada, was formed in Toronto in 1970. Today, the Owen Sound DIA supports a membership of over 300 businesses and property owners. As for our mandate to promote and beautify the downtown, we are proud of our various beautification projects: flower baskets, plantings, flower boxes. Marketing to encourage local residents, neighboring communities, and visitors to shop and use services in downtown Owen Sound. To run promotions that bring people into the downtown core, like the hottest yard sale that brings thousands of people into the Owen Sound. There have been a lot of changes over 40 years, and the downtown Owen Sound has seen new businesses, fires, economic downdrafts, loss of businesses, the Big Dig, and extended 2-hour complimentary parking. Some things haven't changed, however, including a number of downtown landmark businesses. 36 years for the Rocking Horse, 40 years and 2 generations for Wilma's Flower Shop, 61 years for MacArthur Tire and 2 generations, 73 years and 3 generations for Kornblum's Menswear, 84 years and 3 generations for Full Ford's Hardware. And 2014 will see the 100th anniversary of Leggett's Furniture and 4 generations. But there has also been a surge of revitalization downtown, excuse me, with significant growth and expansion. New stores, new services, new developments throughout downtown Owen Sound. The vacancy rate is at under 10%, and it's the lowest it has been in about 5 years. Attracting more people to the downtown through events continues to be a priority for the DIA. Long-standing hottest yard sale under the sun and Moonlight Magic events, and more recent events such as Streets Alive Busker Fest and the revival of the Downtown Christmas Open House provide opportunities to showcase the downtown. The new banner streetscapes enhance 10th Street and throughout the downtown, both greeting locals and visitors to inform them of the many cultural events throughout the city. The DIA continues to sustain and develop community partnerships with Tom Thompson Art Gallery, the library, Santa Claus Parade, the Business Enterprise Center, Citizens on Patrol, and the Farmers Market. The DIA Board of Management, on behalf of its membership, continues to move forward, developing policies and procedures which are fundamental and key to the organizational success. We are in the process of developing a policy and procedures manual which will ensure the DIA Board of Management is functioning responsibly, professionally, and ethically on behalf of the businesses and merchants it represents. The board has also completed a strategic plan focusing on the priorities identified by the membership. It has been an interesting 40 years for the DIA, to say the least. 40 years of facing challenges, resolving issues, and significant accomplishments. The DIA is pulled together in times of trouble and celebrated in times of success. The DIA has been lucky in its relationship with the city. For the most part, we have had a positive and progressive relationship with both council and staff. We've benefited from advice and guidance given over the years, financial assistance towards DIA maintenance, and Streets Alive Buskerfest. We have had dedicated and committed council representatives on the DIA board. On behalf of the DIA membership and the Board of Management, please accept our sincere thanks to the group of council and staff. We'd also like to thank Steve Finesse for the important work that he has done on behalf of the DIA as our city staff liaison over the years. Whether it's been for his valuable counsel, his contributions at board and committee meetings, partnering the city with DIA marketing campaigns, or getting up at 5 a.m. to chalk mark the hottest yard sales booth numbers. Steve has time and time again shown his commitment to the downtown, and we are grateful for that. What initiatives the DIA has tried to take and has taken to benefit the downtown, my slogan has always been, if it's good for downtown Owen Sound, it is good for Owen Sound. When I mentioned in the first part about people starting that DIA back in 1973 with the passion and the vision, people like Bernie Fishman, Sid Pierce, Lauren Rich, these people all have had the vision of what should be and can be in downtown. I've worked in the downtown core for 39 years. I don't own a business, but it's been my pleasure to work downtown. I'm proud of the downtown. I'm proud to work in this area of downtown that is also called Owen Sound. We have a unique situation with our proximity to the harbor. We have a unique situation in our parallel with the river, and it's been my pleasure for these years to have worked downtown. I've worked in the middle, I've worked at the south end, I've worked at the north end. The only spot left for me to go is about 6 feet under. In closing, I'd like to say that it has been hope that both the DIA membership and the Board of Management, that we can continue to rely on the city's support and guidance for the next 40 years. And thank you for your time, your worship, and I hope that those that had attended the DIA 40th anniversary celebration had a good time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have to say that there were a few councillors there, Councillor Adair and Councillor Purdon and Councillor Chamberlain, I recall seeing there. It was quite a great celebration, and congratulations to the DIA. If you could just come back up to the podium for a moment, I do have something to present to you on behalf of the city. Well, Mr. Rodgers, on behalf of the City of Owen Sound, it's my great pleasure to present you with this certificate of recognition. It's from myself and members of Owen Sound Council on behalf of all the residents of the City of Owen Sound in recognition of your 40th anniversary celebration. Congratulations and all the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Rod.
Thanks very much.
Mr. Rodgers and I both started working downtown when we were 2. So, having said that, thank you very much. And another long-serving community group, which we're quite proud of. We're now inviting Carolyn Bigley from Hillcrest Public School, and we're going to learn about the MAJESTA Trees of Knowledge competition and how the community can assist Hillcrest in getting to the top of the charts. So, welcome.
Thank you so much for giving us some time to present tonight. I'm actually Donna Farrow. I'm the principal of Hillcrest Elementary School, but Carolyn Bigley is the president of our school community council. This is very much a community-driven event. Our parents, we're looking for ways to beautify our classroom, beautify our playground and have an outdoor classroom. And so when they found out about this contest back in December, they worked really hard to finish the design. We have students who worked to create a video that promoted the project, and a student that wrote an essay about why being outdoors was so important for the learning of children, and as well our trustee, Mar Gavler, wrote a letter in support of it. So with all of that, we made it to the top 10 across Canada, and before I speak anymore, I think I'm going to turn it over to the video and let you see, let the kids tell you a little bit about it.
Teaching children about the natural world should be treated as one of the most important events of their lives. Thomas Berry. We're not happy to start our desk for several hours a day when we know that just outside our doors await the sun, the wind, and the birds, all of them calling to us, to be still and listen to them, to take our time and learn from them. Let nature be your teacher. William Wordsworth. Can we go outside? Yes!
That's great.
The Trees of Knowledge competition was launched in 2011 by MAJESTA in partnership with Tree Canada and Focus on Forests to help teachers and students experience the benefits of being outdoors. Each year, through Trees of Knowledge, one Canadian school is awarded a complete customized outdoor classroom valued at $20,000. Additional prizes are also awarded to the schools that finish second, third, and fourth, and for the school that shows the most creativity in rallying support. Our school submitted the plan for 3 outdoor classroom areas, and we were selected as one of the 10 finalists nationwide.
Now, our outdoor classrooms are on the backboard here, so I'll let Jade tell you a little bit. We have 3 areas that we want to focus on.
The first area is in the kindergarten end. It's in a corner, kind of. In the corner, there will be a stage or a platform so that kids can do skits on, or somebody can stand on or speak on, or anything. Around that will be logs and benches that kids can play on, and they'll be kind of crossed together, interlocking. Behind that will be stepping logs, and hopscotch, and a place to play hopscotch. And the perimeter will be big stones. And then on the walls, they would like to put some art boards that you can kind of erase or take off and then use them again. And around the corner from that is the already existing butterfly garden, and they would like to put up some bird feeders. The second classroom is for the primaries and juniors, but mostly the juniors. There is quite a big already existing tree, and in front of that they would like to put a reading chair, and around some stumps and benches for seating, and some bird feeders off to the side.
There is a third classroom, and it is in the senior end of the school, underneath an existing maple tree. And there is some existing seating there, but our plan is to expand the seating, adding in benches as well as stump seating, and then finishing the area under the maple tree with a woodland garden containing native species such as would be found in the escarpment in the adjacent areas right next to Hillcrest School. There's also 2 rather sad-looking sheds, which the senior art students are going to revitalize by painting with a natural landscape scene, all created by themselves with the assistance of their art teacher. So the hope at Hillcrest really is that we will integrate getting the kids outdoors more, having them spend more time in nature, not only providing them with an educational outdoor classroom, but also fostering creative play on natural play structures, and also fostering a sense of environmental stewardship amongst the students.
Can you, just before you sit down, I'm going to ask, just for the clerks, because they won't let me out of here tonight without this information, if you could just provide your names and your address before you sit down or before you leave the podium. Thank you. Just for the record.
Sure. My name is Tricia Morris. I'm from Owen Sound.
That's good. That's great. Thank you.
So we are in the final week of the contest. The voting finishes on Friday. The community of Owen Sound has been wonderful to support us right from the start, and we really, really appreciate that. So what we're asking for, I guess, is we're looking for a last-minute surge in votes. We've been in 5th place, kind of hovering up to 4th place a few times over the voting period. We don't know how many votes that means, whether there's just a few votes difference. We just know what our place is. So if you could go on these next few days every day and vote for Hillcrest at majesta.com, that would be wonderful. David Suzuki says, studies have shown time and again that spending time in nature makes children more creative, better problem solvers, and physically healthier. Children have an innate affinity to nature, and we want to inspire them to be environmental stewards of the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this great presentation from the students and parents and teachers alike, so thank you. And it's MAJESTA.com, and you can vote as many times as you like. Each day you can vote, once every day. So being municipal politicians, we love voting, and the fact that we get to vote every day is really quite exciting. So I think if we can get the message out to our friends and families to do that, we can get Hillcrest up to #1. And even if you don't make #1, I think it's an amazing journey that you've started out on, and if nothing else, the kids will figure out another way to get this thing happening. So congratulations for taking this on, and all the best. Thank you. We have one more deputation this evening, and I'll invite George Angel, South Bruce Peninsula ATV Club, with regards to the ATV access in Owen Sound. Welcome.
Your Worship and Councilors, George Angel, this is Rob Preston, Vice President of the club, with a few other names along.
Down there. That one? I don't. Oops. He said double click that one. There we go.
There you go, you got her. Slideshow. We're up there, good. All right, thanks for allowing us to do this deputation, and I guess we'll get it going. I'll just read it off.
Absolutely.
Our mission is to design, develop, maintain, and monitor safe ATV trails in the Bruce Peninsula region. In June of 2011, with the cooperation of the Grey County, the town of Georgian Bluffs, and a renewed commitment from the town of South Bruce Peninsula, we were able to add the Grey County side of our trail system. The entire trail network is now over 150 kilometers, situated between Georgian Bay on the east, Lake Huron on the west, Colpoy Bay and Wyerton on the north, and Highway 21 in the south. This is a little map that, it's okay, we'll carry on here. We're members of the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance, which gives us a great voice from both the federal and provincial governments. The EOTA also covers us for our general liability insurance. The last place an ATV wants to be is on the streets of a city. Our request for ATV use on this proposed safe ATV corridor is not out of want, but out of need. There are 3 fundamental reasons for this request. The Dufferin Gray ATV Club uses the Grey County Rail Trail from Shelburne to Sunny Valley Road. Passage through Owen Sound would allow us to access to all of their trails by ATV. Their members would also be able to access our trails through the Owen Sound corridor. Members based, there are many riders in the city who do not belong to an ATV club, would join ours, but they don't have access to the trails. Allowing them to ride from town to our trails, well, their backyard just got a whole lot bigger. Owen Sound allows snowmobiling access from residence to trail. Seems like an important thing. Extension to the ATVs would be a very positive amendment. Services, access to the city's restaurants, motels, and shopping enhances the appeal of Owen Sound when marketing to a distant markets, and will offer a new clientele for those businesses. Our riders are always helmeted, licensed, and insured. Really no different from a motorcycle, except we are considerably slower and quieter. In order to avoid Gray Road 1, we proposed that the corridor would exit the Georgian Bluffs Trail at 26th Street West, head west 1 block up to 5th Avenue and south to 24th Street West, connecting to 4th Avenue West. We would then follow 4th Avenue West, keeping us out of the heavy traffic routes. We would get back onto 3rd Avenue West at 12th Street and follow 3rd to 8th Street West. Using 8th Street to cross the river, we would follow it east to 7th Avenue, head south to 6th Street East, and then cross over 9th Avenue East. Through some private agreements, we are able to connect from 6th Street East to the Superior Street, which takes us to the Grey County Rail Trail. This route would allow a single, safe access across town with traffic lights at all major intersections. In defense of our original proposed route, when access to Grey County Rail Trail is acquired, lodging at 6th Street East and food, fuel, and retail services on the 16th Avenue via 17th Street East are easily available. Excuse me. Meanwhile, until that trail is allowed, the city and ATV riders would benefit by permitting access on the west side as outlined. Georgian Rail Trail to 26th Street west, 5th Avenue south to 24th Street west to 4th Avenue to 14th Street. That way, to be able to access the Vince's Plaza out there for fuel and Captain John's, the burger joint, stuff like that. So in review of the bylaw committee report, I hope you've all had a chance to read it, ATVs will not cause any damage to paved roadways in the route. An ATV is no different from any other licensed motorized vehicle while driving by a school or anywhere else. We would be curious as to how ATV use would represent significant change to the way city roads are used. Motorcycles with sidecars, spider motorcycles, disability scooters, and even Smart for Two vehicles are all different, yet create no chaos on the streets. General noise from an ATV is no greater than any other motorized vehicle. Suggesting we would add to the bottleneck of the river crossing streets? Don't think so. In comparison to other municipalities outlined that do not allow ATVs, they also do not have provincial trails in the area. We're on the east and west sides of Owen Sound. We offer some of the best in the province. This is a partnership worth making. Creating this partnership will require a bylaw to allow the use of ATVs on city streets included on the proposed route. We are concurrently working with Grey County Trails to allow us access to the rail line from Sunny Valley Road North. Creating this partnership will provide ATV riders with an enhanced riding experience, keeping them off unauthorized private and public lands. Increased tourism, especially off-season when needed most. Increased economic activity for local businesses in accommodation, fuel, food, and supply sector. Signage of the trail will be undertaken by the ATV Club. The increased presence will promote safety to all users, including cyclists, hikers, joggers, and dog walkers. For the city, this proposal is positive for economic development, positive for tourism development, positive for recreation development. It offers better ATV riding opportunities and focused riding with a responsible ATV club. We believe it's a partnership worth making. We hope you agree. Let's keep the dialogue open.
Good presentation, thank you very much. I believe that there'll be some discussion, and there may be some questions, if you're open to receiving questions?
Yes?
Okay. I'll go to council. Councillor Lemon.
Yeah, I just a couple questions, because I'm sorry I don't know the answers. What is the age restrictions on ATVs?
To ride on the road, it's the same as any other licensed person. Like you have to have a license, driver's license, or a M1, like motorcycle license.
Okay, that's my first question. So,
You know, I guess as long as they still have a driver's license, if they're a senior, they can keep driving.
I saw a motorized scooter a couple of days ago, and I don't think the person was of driving age, and I found out that's permitted on a scooter, but
Oh, really?
ATVs are required.
Yes, we're licensed the same, we're licensed under the Highway Traffic Act, and we're expected to abide by the rules to have license and insurance on our own private vehicles, as well as our Eastern Ontario umbrella insurance.
Okay, that was my second question, was about insurance. You're required to have insurance as a car driver is required to
Under
have.
the Highway Traffic Act, we have to have everything it's the same as a motorcycle, a snowmobile.
Thank you.
Thank you. Members of council, questions? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. To Mr. Angel, you talk about the Grey County Rail Trail, and you're working on that end of it.
Portion, yes.
Where are you with that right now?
We've started discussions because we, need to have Owen Sound. We've talked to Sarah Morrison, and it's in the beginning stages of it. Grey County has been excellent at allowing us to use trails if we have a place to go. And I feel that the people that live on the east side of Owen Sound need a route at least to get out of Owen Sound, and it'd be nice to have the route to come in so that the, restaurants and whatnot off 16th Street, off of 17th Street to 16th Avenue, all have a chance to deal with them. I took my grandson to the Boston Pizza, the Attack were having a road hockey game there this past winter, and I looked in the backyard, and there had to be 40 or 50 snowmobiles parked in the backyard. People stopped in for lunch at 2:30. That's an economic boost to the city. I think it's a good thing.
The key part for you, though, is you would need this Grey County portion, without the if Grey County was to say no, then there still would be this gap in your system. Is that correct?
There would, but to my knowledge, Grey County has never said no to us. As long as we have, I could give you a couple of examples if you'd like, of where we do travel on Grey County roads and whatnot, and as long as we have clear visibility, we go out and scout out the corner and make sure we have vision, there's no distractions or anything for crossing the roads and all this. And when we have a trail or people living in Owen Sound that want to get right out of town, that's a reason for them to allow us to do this. Up to Sunny Valley, it's a multi-use trail. And I can vouch for anybody on the trail, ATVers slow down, same as snowmobilers do. We slow down. What's the difference whether it's a snowmobile crossing that or an ATV? And the snowmobiles are allowed, so, to my knowledge.
Several times in your presentation or in your letter here as well, you talk about keeping the dialogue open. You've read the staff report, you've seen the staff report.
I have.
And it certainly appears to me that the biggest problem is the route, or trying to find a route that is acceptable to all parties, being
Yes.
the city operations department and the police department and such. And so personally, I'm not against keeping the dialogue open, because I think your proposal makes a lot of sense in certain areas. I do too worry about the route, and with the limited crossings across Owen Sound, it may not be as easy. Innisfil would be similar to us as far as the size. I'm not sure if they have the same geography that would, cause problems going across the city. Right now, there's only 4 real crossings across the city. So, just speaking for myself, I'm not against keeping the dialogue open. I think you've seen the report, you see some of the problems the staff have identified. You're still working with Grey County, so on their portion of this, so it's difficult to, you need that solved as well. So I guess my opinion would be, I think you need to look at routes and see if there are alternatives to the plan you submitted, and see if there isn't something that might work better. But anyway, those are my comments.
So to your concerns, it was stated in the bylaw report, accommodations. Well, that's the reason we'd like to come in 16th Street, or 6th Street, sorry, 6th Street East. The Days Inn, we cross the road, Pinecrest, Owen Sound Motor Inn. All the intersections are traffic light, the major intersections are traffic light controlled. So when we go across 9th Avenue, there's traffic lights to control. We are a motorized vehicle, we have to obey that. There's no doubt about it. You go down 6th Street, go across 7th Avenue, top of 8th Street, traffic light controlled. Again, you go down across town, traffic light controlled. This is the safest route we felt. We realize it's going through a busy part of town, but it is a safe route, because there are traffic lights at every major intersection. When we cross over 10th Street on 3rd Avenue West, traffic lights. Corner of 14 and 4, traffic lights. And then we're basically out of town after we go 4th Avenue up around to 5th Avenue and back down on 26th Street to the rail trail and gone.
If I might, sorry, one other question, and this is for staff. The snowmobile trails, I'm not sure which staff member would address this. When snowmobiles are allowed in the city, they're not allowed to cross the city, are they? There's limited access into the city and then back out again. I thought that was right, and sorry if that's an unfair question to spring on you, but I thought, my understanding was they had routes to get into the city and back out of the city, but not necessarily across the city.
Not sure Mr. McRoberts has been on his
Snowmobile
snowmobile last
recently.
winter. He's,
Perhaps we could get back to you. I don't think we have a full, comprehensive answer for you.
Is that, I mean, obviously, that's one of the concerns, as is stated in the report, them going across and through the city, and I could be mistaken here, but I thought for snowmobiles, we allowed them into certain destinations.
Right.
And then back out again, not necessarily through.
Mr. Angel is chomping at the bit.
Oh, sorry.
I think you might have this information.
The city is allowed to run across above Harrison Park. There's fields that are cropped through the summer months, so we don't ride that, we can't ride that terrain. The farmers have got crops out there. So they're allowed to come down across through Harrison Park to get around the city. We have no route as of yet. But at your point that snowmobiles are allowed to access from their residence out of the city via the rail trail on the east side, via the rail trail on the west side. And, there are direct routes that they can get out on, and I think that's a fair way to start if they're not happy with our cross-town crossing right now. I don't know where we can go to do that, other than I guess my reason I wanted to do it this way is I've been in Owen Sound since 1978, lived here, and I'd like to see, as in the mayor's victory speech, I want to grow Owen Sound. And this is quite an industry that's coming on. ATVing is an industry. So if we can bring the people into Owen Sound, if we send them off down by Chatsworth or further south to go around Owen Sound, what do they have to come into Owen Sound for? They don't. I'm trying to bring them in so they can cross through Owen Sound, stay at the Days Inn, spend their money there, use the facilities on 16th Street, the restaurants, whatever, come in, spend the night, get on their ATV, go across, and do the loop around. This is deja vu for the snowmobile people. That's how they did it. They had to go back out to, road, Storybook Park Road. They cross over into conservation land and ride through across the city. But because of the crop fields, we cannot do that. And I'm just trying to bring tourism into the city of Owen Sound by doing this. Your point of allowing us, or snowmobiles being allowed to access the trails, that may be what we'll have to settle for now. And that's fine. But the reason for bringing them into Owen Sound is to get them to spend money in here.
And to clarify those comments on the trail issue, I mean, Parks and Rec did look earlier about this whole trail issue, ATVs on trails, and I would suggest that ATVs on a trail in an urban setting might be different than the county out in the country setting. I mean, there were concerns around damage to the trails and conflicts on the trails as far as trail use, but
yeah.
I mean, and my point isn't to get into debate with you here, I was just...
That's where I'd like to keep the dialogue open, because from 30th Street on out, we're able to ride a multi-use trail in Georgian Bluffs. And we're working on a 5-year agreement with them. They're happy with what we're doing out there. The people, they don't get complaints from the people that are walking their dogs, whatever. Snowshoers, cross-country skiers, we're not out much when they're out there, but, these people are meeting snowmobiles on that same trail. We're quieter and we're slower on our ATVs.
Couple more questions, and I'll go to Councillor Wright and then Councillor Lemon.
I don't have a question, Your Worship. I was just going to answer Councillor McManaman's question about the county. I chair that particular committee up at the county, and we have had nothing come to our committee about ATVs on the rail trail right now. We do not allow ATVs in our forest tracks at all. There's one that has had some use in it, but other than that, we have not allowed ATV on our trails because of the damage that they have caused in certain areas. I'm not sure about the snowmobile trail. The snowmobile trails that are coming up are well looked after by the snowmobile clubs, and they have agreements with the county for the care. So perhaps this gentleman is working with planning on working out an agreement for care of the trails. I'm not sure. It just hasn't reached my committee as yet. And if you look in your bylaw committee minutes, there was a motion that I moved myself, and it says that we request that Parks and Recreation consider allowing ATVs on city trails in consideration. So I'm quite sure this is going to come back to your committee with respect to this.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon and then Councillor McManaman.
One of the points that's being made is, I'm not sure whether or not we have got a snowmobile trail across the valley floor. Well, there's probably a reason if we don't, and that is very simply, snowmobiles don't really operate well on clear pavement.
Right.
And that's the reason why you're not going to see a lot of snowmobiles in the downtown area, because the roads are asphalt, and that will rip the treads up on a snowmobile very quickly. In terms of crossing the city, there's a different need here than with snowmobiles. I think there's some parallels, but there are also some differences. And in terms of impact on our streets, I don't know what an ATV weighs, but I'll bet you it's a lot less than my van.
With 500 pounds, and their tire pressure normally does not exceed 5 pounds of air.
So we don't need to be concerned about it tearing up our asphalt. There's a lot of other things that do, but it's certainly nothing compared to a heavy truck or even our own city vehicles.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to comment back about that, the motion that does talk about Parks and Recreation and Parks considering it. I guess my concern would be, from that end of it, if the city is concerned about them being on pavement and signalized intersections, the damage that would be done on pavement would be, as Councillor Lemons just said, would be negligible. I'm not sure trails would be a better fit, as I guess what I'm saying. If you either want the ATVs through the city or you don't, and in my mind, if they're going to go through the city, I'm not sure trails would be the appropriate spot for them, simply due to the damage component. They're not going to damage a city road. They might damage the trails, but anyway, thank you.
Mr. Angel, would you like to just wrap up, and then we'll let council get on with their decision making?
Yes. Appreciate you listening to us, and the last slide there. Let's keep the dialogue open. I'm retired, so I can come at sometimes even less than 24 hours notice. I can show up at a meeting and more than happy to do that and answer questions. And I don't know if I could round up, how many would I need? 10, 12 ATVs? Take you for a ride and just show that we don't do damage on the trails. And if we do, we fix them. That's our commitment to Grey County, Bruce County, and everybody else. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation and for answering all the questions. Councillor Body, did you have your hand up to say something?
No, I didn't.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other members of council? Any questions, any further discussion on this? What is council's direction? Motion to receive the presentation?
Receive presentation? We'll just have.
I don't know if do we normally receive, well, the minutes come up later, and I was assuming we'd have that discussion there. I thought we're just asking questions now, so I assume that we'll get into a discussion later when the minutes of the bylaw committee comes up.
Did you want to bring those forward at this time? Council?
Sure.
Sure. Okay, we'll bring the minutes forward from the bylaw committee. Pages, help me out with the pages on that.
Page 152.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Page 151 to 154, the bylaw committee minutes, and within those minutes, there's some discussion and there's a motion. With regards to that particular set of minutes, what is council's direction? Councillor Body.
I'll take the hit. I would move that we don't agree as council with the recommendation from the committee, and that we do permit ATVs on city streets, and that we proceed to determine the very best route. If this isn't the best route, that we try and find another one. I too have been up around Boston Pizza and all the restaurants on the east side on a Saturday, and they are full of snowmobiles in the winter. We're seeing a change in our climate. We're seeing less snowmobiles on the trails. We're seeing a shorter winter season. We're seeing an increased use of ATVs. If we're serious about trying to attract tourism to Owen Sound, then this is a way to do it. There's a lot of people that are buying ATVs and going out and touring in groups of 10s and 20s. A year or so ago, I was on the rail trail out towards Shallow Lake, and along came about 10 or 15 ATVs. They had signals to slow themselves down when they approached us as bicycles. We did not eat any dust whatsoever. They shared the trail with us, and I would assume that there's an ethic or a sort of group rules that they would continue the same with other people. The rubber tires, they're not like the steel blades on the front of a snowmobile that can damage a road. They use restaurants, they use hotels, they use all kinds of things, and it makes sense that we try and attract them to our town. So that's why I'm suggesting that we do permit ATVs on the streets. Thanks.
Okay, procedurally, there's no motion on the floor at this time. We do need to address the one motion on page 152 and the balance of the minutes. So I'll go to Councillor Lemon.
To return it to the committee.
I thought Councillor Body did move a motion to...
If
Coined as a suggestion.
No, I was moving it. However, if I worded it wrong, then I would move that it be returned to the committee for further review of the route, I guess would be
Sure.
the proper wording, I think.
That'll work. Councillor Lemon.
Well, speaking in support of Councillor Body on this, I can remember quite a few years ago when we were faced with the question of snowmobiles. And the argument, well, we don't want them in the city. Well, we got smarter as we got older, I guess, or something, and realized that these people spend money, use services, and I have seen what was alluded to at Boston Pizza. There is one, or was one, motel on 9th Avenue, which has gas pumps to serve snowmobiles. A number of, I don't know if they still have it, but a number of years ago, this particular motel had that and welcomed snowmobilers quite actively. So I think this is a new market. We've got to move with the times, and it's time to rethink.
So, to Councillor Body, we do have a motion on the floor. The motion is to refer this back to, is it the bylaw committee?
Yes.
For more discussion and dialogue in terms of a safe route.
Yes.
Okay. So a motion to receive, should we do a motion to receive first? The entire?
Receive what?
Yeah. Right. First, we're in a bit of a predicament here.
Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Adair. Come to the procedural.
Well, there are other parts of the bylaw committee that I would like to
Discuss.
discuss.
Madam Clerk.
I would recommend then that we pull forward only item 7A of the bylaw committee minutes right now.
Okay.
And that's the motion that exists, obviously defeated, and if that's the wish of the council body, and then if that goes through, we then move on to a motion of council body.
Sure. We put the cart in front of the horse a wee bit. So we need to pull out item 7A, and if Councillor Body, if that motion is defeated, then your motion would make abundant sense in terms of procedural matters. So 7A is the particular motion. Pull that out from the body of the minutes, because there are other items within the minutes that councillors may wish to discuss.
I would move that we pull 7A from the body.
Okay, so the motion...
Sorry, 7A, yeah.
Yeah, and that motion, is everyone has that in front of them? Councillor Chamberlain?
Point number 2 says that consider the matter of ATVs on city roads during review of the transportation master plan or other strategic planning documents. That's basically the same motion as Councillor Body wants to make, isn't it?
Not the way it's been presented. The way the motion is presented
Okay,
is that it
all right.
would return directly to the bylaw committee.
All right.
Councillor Wright?
We pulled it. Are we just voting on pulling it?
That's correct.
Okay, because then I just want to speak to, after we vote on pulling it, then I would like to speak to it, so.
Okay, so removing item 7A from the minutes. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. A subsequent motion, Councillor Wright.
No, I'm not making a motion. I just want to explain, at the time that this motion was put forth, we had information that the Recreation Committee just did not approve ATVs on the road within the last year. And so that's why we didn't approve it, because we said, well, if the Recreation Committee doesn't want ATVs, or it was on the trails actually, on their trails, then we should not be approving them to go on the trails. We should send it back to Recreation. That's the history of what happened here. And so, I mean, it's just, if we're going to just use roads, that's a totally different issue than if we're going to use our trails.
Further discussion?
Not correct. Okay.
To that point, though, no, that's completely correct. The Parks and Rec Committee most certainly looked at this issue and did not endorse or support having ATVs on the city trail system. That's, in my opinion, is different than whether we support ATVs being on the, whether it's the streets or alternative routes, as Councillor Body's motion that's coming up shortly suggested. They most certainly, you are correct, though, they most certainly did not, less than a year ago, support having them on the city trail network.
That's right.
Councillor Purdon.
Just to carry on with that, at the bylaw committee, when we discussed this matter, the proposed route actually did have ATVs traveling on the rail trail within the city limits before it went on to the roads. There was a section there behind 24th Street along the rail trail. And I remember saying that I'm up there on the bike, and it was, I couldn't imagine having ATVs and people, there's crowds of people up there, on that section of the rail trail. So, and then we had the discussion, I'm just trying to, for everyone to know, we had the discussion about that it had gone to the Recreation Committee and that they weren't allowed on that section of the trail. So we didn't want to overturn that. So that was the one part of it. And then we also had extensive conversation about there's no precedent really for having ATVs on city roads in other communities. So that was the other piece of it.
Certainly sounds like council would like more discussion on this from some committee. Councillor McManaman.
That's what thank you, Worship. I was just going to say that. Councillor Body's motion talks about, sending it back. Is there an alternative route that works? In my mind, that's on the city road network if it were to work. But I suppose if it comes back and there's portions of it that you don't support, then it doesn't move forward. But and you're right about the rail trail out at the end. Of all the kilometers they're talking about traveling here, well, I guess it'd be up to council if the last half a kilometer had to be on the rail trail. Was that acceptable or not? I don't know. But anyway, I'm certainly in support of sending this back to see if there isn't an alternative route that would work.
Councillor Purdon.
I think it's important to note that it came to the bylaw committee so there could be a change in the bylaw to allow ATVs on city streets. And the bylaw committee did an extensive review of all kinds of information and said no. So I'm not sure why we would send it to another committee, because the matter that it was sent to bylaw to ask about having ATVs on city streets, and the bylaw committee recommends no, not to have ATVs. So I think it's a matter to be discussed here to decide whether council wants to have ATVs on city streets or not. The bylaw committee did an extensive review. We had a lot of research. We spent a lot of time on this and said we wouldn't advise that. So, and then the ATV club asked what their options were, and we said bring it to council as a whole.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Body and see if you're still developing the motion.
Well, we're working as a team on this side, Your Worship. We've got input from all around as to what the motion should be. Given what Councillor Purdon has said, I get her point. If there's no need to have a further discussion, the committee's going to come back with the same recommendation, which appears to be what the situation would be, then I will withdraw that motion, and my motion is this. My motion is that council permit ATVs on city streets at this time, and based on the plan presented by the ATV Club.
Got that? Discussion to the motion, Councillor Purdon.
I'm not in support of this motion for the same reasons that I was against it when we discussed it at bylaw, but I also need to make the city council aware that by approving that motion, we'd also be allowing ATVs on the rail trail, which the rec committee said no to. So it would change that as well.
Okay. Further discussion? Councillor Adair.
This motion would be without any consideration to police services? Because police services are, at least they have advised the bylaw committee, are totally opposed to having ATVs on the road. But, I mean, they could tell council that directly if they wanted to.
Councillor McMahon?
Thank you, Your Worship. The report doesn't speak to that at all. Doesn't mention that the police services are opposed to it. So, I mean, that would have been...
They are. I mean, sorry, Your Worship, they are, but I mean, they can speak for themselves.
Your Worship, if I might, to Councillor Body, a friendly amendment that the first party motion that we allow them, but that they work with the city on developing the route. And the only reason I say that is because I'm not exactly sure that the route they proposed was 100% what the city would want. That's just a suggestion.
Is that a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I'll accept that amendment. I agree that I'm not sure it's the best route, but given that that's why I thought we were going to send it back to the committee, but if the committee's going to say the same thing, then we're just chasing our tails. So I'll accept that friendly amendment, and I don't know who's going to figure it out with the trail group, but staff.
City Manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. I am concerned that without some input from staff to determine if there should be some sort of regulations or rules around use of city streets, that you're simply saying fairly wide open that ATVs will be allowed on city streets, and that may or may not be appropriate, but I would like the opportunity to have staff review and consider whether there should be some sort of regulation or rules around that. So I guess I'm really looking, council, it would be helpful for staff to know in principle if you support consideration of ATVs on our city streets, and then refer it back to staff for further information, so that we know if we're looking at this from, yes, you would consider it in certain circumstances or not, and then let us put provide you with our thoughts on whether there should be further regulation.
Councillor Purdon.
I think that's what we were discussing at the bylaw committee, not with council as a whole. And the chief of police was very clear that he was not in favor. And there are many other communities where, in the research that we had, that said it was not a good idea. So it wasn't, it was the bylaw committee said that we wouldn't advise it. So I think it's difficult to give direction to staff, because I don't think there has been a decision.
If I could clarify, I'm only saying if you decide tonight by a vote of council to consider it, then I would ask that you consider it in principle and then refer it back to staff.
Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. Perhaps, could I ask the clerk to read the motion out, and we'll vote on that and get moving.
We have that City Council permit the use of ATVs on city streets at this time, and that city staff be directed to work with the South Bruce Peninsula ATV Club to determine the best route based upon the plan presented by the ATV Club. But there's been some friendly amendments in there, so want to make sure that with that we clarify.
Are you satisfied with the motion?
Support in principle, right?
Support in.
If you accept that, okay.
Everyone clear on the motion as it stands? All those in favor? Opposed? Let's do that again. All those in favor? All those opposed? And I too am opposed. That motion is defeated. Is there any subsequent? Councillor Twaddle.
I would move that we accept the recommendation contained in 7A of the bylaw committee report minutes.
Back to the original. All those in favor? Opposed? I too am opposed. That motion is carried. Thank you.
No, you're,
Or I'm in favor. Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you. We are moving along, and I thank you for your time and energy on this, and I don't believe that the dialogue is closed. I believe the dialogue continues to stay open, and I think Grey County is going to certainly show the lead on this, and Grey County certainly holds a lot of the keys to our connecting links and access to and from roads. So I thank you to those members of the public who came forward tonight. Moving along, the next item on the agenda is the public question period. Is there any members of public here tonight who would like to ask a question of this council? Seeing none. A letter dated April the 8th from the Honorable Jim Bradley. This is an information piece for council in terms of a request that came from McLean Engineering for the city's support to obtain a meeting with the Minister of the Environment, and that has been secured, and that meeting is going forward with all of the proponents from McLean Engineering in the very near future. So, motion to receive. Councillor Purdon? Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report of consent agenda items. We have quite a lengthy consent agenda. A lease agreement with Georgian Bay Folk Society for Kelso Beach, and a variety of planning notifications, of which the city had minimal comment, and some business licenses. Councillor Adair.
I'll move the consent agenda, Your Worship.
All those in favor? Oh, Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had two questions on the consent agenda for the Director of Community Services. The first one about the notice of the passing of the bylaw on the Cashew-Beck property. More of a, I guess, a question. The county planner didn't support certain parts of this, It's gone ahead anyway. I guess I'd ask, we had a number of concerns with this moving forward. Well, actually, this one and the very next one, the Tom development, are very similar in the sense that we had concerns, county planning staff had concerns, and they've gone ahead anyway. I guess maybe to the director, in both of these circumstances, have there been any changes to it since we first saw it, from due to the planning comments from the county?
Your Worship, the comments of the county in part really have been addressed in the bylaw amendment that was approved by the township. There is a requirement that only one of the buildings be occupied by the home occupation. As well, the building envelope identified by the Conservation Authority apparently has been incorporated into the site-specific amendment. So while there's not a gross floor area limit in the bylaw, it does limit the home occupation to one of the accessory structures.
And on the next notice, the Tom.
Similarly, the county was provided both with a stormwater management as well as a servicing study with respect to sewage disposal. The number of seats in the proposed restaurant for the building at Springmount is limited to 64, we understand, based on that review. City staff, our engineering department, hasn't been provided those studies, but we understand they were provided to the county and that the county won't be pursuing the application any further.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dare moved the motion to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a series of reports. First one on page 86, report from the city clerk with regards to the deputy mayor job description. It's council's direction. Councillor Body.
As I recall, this motion is already on the books, made by Councillor Purdon the last meeting, and then after her motion came in, Councillor McManaman asked to table it, so we would have Councillor Wright and, and Councillor Lemon too, and Councillor Twaddle here for the discussion. Just for your reminder, I assume it's not a new motion then?
It's correct.
Councillor Purdon can pick it from the top.
Correct, yes. So, would you like to speak to this? Councillor Purdon.
I think my motion at the time was that we institute a deputy clerk, or deputy clerk.
That's good.
No. We already have a deputy clerk. A deputy mayor that would also have the role and responsibility of a deputy mayor, and that the acting mayor rotation that we have now would be only used when both the mayor and the deputy mayor were not available. So I think the last report was option A and option B, and I think it was option 1, sorry. Yes, well, option 1 was my motion.
Option 1. Okay, Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much, and I would support that, but I would say, as an addition, that we have a rotating acting deputy mayor, so that when the mayor is away, the deputy mayor takes over, but when the deputy mayor is away and can't take over, that we have a rotating deputy mayor.
And I believe that would be covered off in option 1, but I'm going to go to the clerk, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Further to the motion that was made originally, the deputy mayor is now going to be the city county council job title. So we would need, after the mayor and deputy mayor were unavailable, we would then go to an acting mayor rotation, unless we expected that person to also cover off the responsibilities of city county council. So my recommendation would be to have a mayor, a deputy mayor, and then if they were both not available, have acting mayor rotation to cover off your role.
And my understanding at Grey County is that, if the county councilor or the deputy mayor and/or mayor are absent, that they cannot send in a designate or a delegate.
They can't, no.
Okay.
It's not part. But the mayor and the deputy mayor are going to often be away together on county business. So you do need that rotating acting position to carry on.
That is covered off in
Right.
option 1.
Right. Yeah, well, I support that.
Okay, Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm just wondering out loud, because I've been trying to work my way around this. We went for several terms with a city-county councilor, which no one else had, and we're now moving into having a title called deputy mayor. Would it not make sense for the next term to simply have the person in that position assume the title but not any more responsibilities than the position that we're replacing it with? So the deputy mayor would be what we would call the city-county councilor, so that at the county level, it looks the same as everybody else, but we would continue on with the rotation as we have been doing it, and see how that role evolves. Basically, option 2, but I can be persuaded, I'm not, one way or the other, but
Further discussion? Councillor McManaman.
Excuse me, one question on option 1 would be if that position was to act in place of the mayor all the time when the mayor was absent, is the issue of remuneration. Right now, it's spread amongst 8 people.
with no remuneration.
It would be, that person would be doing it, not all the time, but a lot more than we've been doing it in the past, so, just a question.
Councillor Adair?
Well, that would be one of my other points. Right now, if the position was simply taking over the role of the city-county councilor, there would be no change in remuneration, and everyone would take their turn that's on council being acting mayor of the month. And at this point, there is no additional remuneration. You can be called out as acting mayor 25 times during a month, and there isn't any difference. If it was the case where you would always be that person in the event that you were still in town, then there should be a difference in remuneration.
Discussion's drying up. I'm sorry, Councillor Purdon.
I think in this report, they're only talking about changing the titles and the responsibilities and options. I don't disagree that having done that, if we make a decision that changes things, that we would need to look at the whole responsibilities, remuneration, and all the rest of it. But I think just in this report, we didn't get into any of that, so we're just looking right now whether we want to change the way things are. That's my understanding.
Further discussion? We have a motion on the floor? Yeah. Thank you. And the motion is option 1. Further discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? And I'm in favor, that motion passes. Well, there we go. There's a decision, next one. Report by the city clerk with regards to the 2014 vote by mail option, page 89. Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Based on our previous discussion, come as no surprise that I have quite a few concerns about what is being proposed, and I'll ask council to bear with me. I'm going to go through the report and address the concerns, but before I start, Elections Canada, which is arguably one of the most prestigious organizations in the world running elections and is consulted by many, many other countries and has provided expertise to many other countries, Elections Ontario, which operates very closely to the Elections Canada model, have both gone the other way. Although they are looking at alternative methods of voting, they're doing it in a way that ensures, or looking at how they can do it in a way that continues to ensure the integrity of the list of electors, and in a way that ensures that there is a true test of eligibility for everyone who presents themselves to cast a ballot. It is not an offense under election legislation for an ineligible individual to have their name on a list of electors. It is, however, an offense if you are ineligible to actually cast a ballot. And that's a recognition that the enumeration process, the creation of electors lists, is not perfect. But in the last 2 or 3 federal elections and the last 2 or 3 provincial elections, individuals who present themselves to vote, whether or not their name appears on the list of electors, are required to produce proof of identity and residence. There are 3 tests that you must meet in order to be eligible to vote in an election in Canada, and that is age of majority, citizenship, and residence. Municipally, residence is also tenancy, which is slightly different because you may have an official residence in one municipality but be a tenant in another municipality, and you have a right to vote in both of those municipalities. So, as I go through this report, I find a number of instances where there is no test for eligibility. In the paragraph titled Background, it says, ensure that people are given every opportunity to vote and that the voting process is as accessible and accountable as possible. It is my belief that accountability is lost if the process is compromised by poor lists of electors, if there's no real test ensuring that the person who submits a ballot is the individual who is entitled to submit that ballot. MPAC is a property assessment body. It's not an election body. It's not charged with running elections. It is charged with creating a list of electors, but the process by which that list of electors is created is, in my view, feeble at best, because you get a notice in the mail with your annual assessment notice, and it asks you to indicate whether the individuals in the house are public school supporters or separate school supporters, Catholic school supporters. It depends on the individual understanding what the implications of that are and properly filling that out. So they don't necessarily track people who move, tenants who move. They don't necessarily even track changes in ownership of property, because it may be owned by one individual and tenanted by somebody entirely different. Ownership may change, but the tenants may not. Or the tenants may change, but the ownership may not. So you're starting with a very weak list of electors, and you're going to send a ballot in the mail to everybody whose name appears on the list as prepared by MPAC. And every election there are stories about people who receive ballots who are not eligible to vote. People put their dogs' names on, all kinds of things. There's no attempt, there's a reference in this report to MPAC doing an enumeration, but in fact, that really doesn't happen. There is, at both the provincial and federal levels, as you approach an election, although they no longer do a door-to-door enumeration to virtually every residence in a riding, they still do targeted, it's called targeted revision, but it's an enumeration that takes place in many, many areas of a riding, an electoral district, where there is high mobility or changeover. You know, the recommendation is that we proceed to vote by mail because it will be less expensive and easier. And it is my view that electoral integrity should never succumb to expedience. That we all, as elected representatives, put ourselves out and ask the electors to put their trust in us individually. But in order for that trust to be fully merited, there has to be a belief that the system itself is truly accountable, and that in fact, my ballot that I cast as an individual entitled to vote is not canceled out by someone who votes either in error because they received a ballot that they were not entitled to, or malevolently because they were entitled to it. There will be, arguably, if there are 16,000 electors in Owen Sound and everybody receives a ballot in the mail, everybody whose name is on the list of electors, and you get a 50% turnout, then there will arguably be 8,000 unaccounted for ballots. Now, my experience with running elections for Elections Canada, working on elections for Elections Ontario, and doing elections internationally is that ballot security is of the utmost importance. As a matter of fact, ballot security at the federal and provincial levels in Canada is so important that the paper that the ballots are printed on is provided by, at the federal level, Elections Canada. It goes directly to the printer. The printer signs for every sheet of paper and must return every unused sheet of paper and all the off trimmings from preparing the ballots. Ballot security is paramount. My experience in both Indonesia and Ukraine indicates that all the challenges, many of the challenges that they had around running fair and open elections was around ballot security. We should be very concerned that there's a potential for 7,000 or 8,000 unaccounted for ballots floating around at the time of an election. As I say, there's no test for eligibility. Every candidate for every office has the right to view, either individually or through an agent, every person who presents themselves to vote. We don't all exercise that right, but we do have that right. And has the right to challenge anyone who the candidate or their agent feels may be misrepresenting themselves. It's not something that can be done frivolously. You can't challenge every individual elector who appears just because you think you can. But you do have that right. That right is taken away by the fact that the ballot is sent to an address with somebody's name on it. It comes back with a signature, but there's no test. There is no final test attached to that when the individual presents that ballot by putting it back in the mail, that they were in fact a Canadian citizen, that they are in fact of the age of majority, and that they are in fact a Canadian citizen entitled to vote. And I know from experience that there are many, many people who have voted many times in elections because they are British subjects, thinking that they were eligible to vote. And as a matter of fact, I've had individuals who are being trained as election officials who I couldn't use because, through no fault of their own, they thought they were eligible, but they were not eligible electors. So going to a vote by mail system requires that every one of us as candidates and everybody else in the community who wants to put themselves forward as a candidate will willingly cede their right to observe the election process and to have the opportunity to challenge any individual who they have reason to believe is not who they say they are or not clearly entitled to vote. Does that happen? Not necessarily very often, but the potential is there. And the whole process that has been established in Canada, in Ontario, and in municipalities across Ontario for many decades is to ensure absolute transparency, to ensure that what doesn't happen, as happened in Ukraine, is that voters get themselves in cavalcades and they go from polling station to polling station to polling station, voting as many times as they can during the course of the day because there wasn't security of ballots and there were lots of special ballots out there floating around. That doesn't happen in Canada, but it requires all of us to cede our right to exercise that vigilance. Most candidates don't do it, but there's a difference between having the choice not to do it and having that choice taken away from you.
Councillor Twaddle, we're just passing the 10-minute mark in our
Well,
procedural bylaw.
Your Worship, I have a number of other issues that I wish to raise. The last time when I tried to do this, I was cut off. I think that there are some serious issues that need to be addressed, and I will ask Council's indulgence to continue.
Council, is another 10 minutes okay?
Thank you.
Carry on.
I appreciate that. Not only do individual candidates have the right to observe the process and inspect and challenge any elector who they have reason to believe is not presenting themselves honestly at the poll. A candidate has the right to inspect every ballot as it's being counted. A candidate or their agent. Again, at the municipal level, that doesn't happen. But under this process, if any one of us were to choose to exercise that right, it would delay the counting much longer than it's been delayed in the past. And every one of us has that right, and under this system, each and every one of us would have to agree to cede that right, which I don't believe is appropriate. in a traditional voting process, now, every voter must provide identification. That's not going to be required if we vote by mail. There is a reference to software that will run death certificates against the list of electors. Those are death certificates that are issued in the municipality. I don't know whether this software has been tested against our list of electors. I don't believe it has. I do know that at the federal and provincial levels, they run vital statistics reports against the National Registry of Electors on an annual basis. It doesn't work very well at all. It is not considered to be a very effective way of maintaining the list of electors. Sorry, I'm having just a little trouble here keeping track. In terms of knowing whether the person who actually submitted a ballot is the individual for whom that ballot was intended, there's no way of knowing that, because there's nothing to compare a signature against. There's a reference to special balloting, which is allowed at the federal level. It's an entirely different process, because in order to receive a special ballot, I must first prove my identity. It's not just given to me. And once I receive that ballot, I'm considered to have voted, whether in fact I ever put that ballot in the box or not. So I don't have, once I receive a special ballot, I don't have a second option to go to the poll on the polling day and say, well, I didn't use my special ballot. There's no process to reach out to the people who, since the last election, will have turned 18 and become eligible to vote. Elections Canada, using vital statistics, at least attempts to reach all of those individuals by mailing information to them and through fairly major campaigns. There are very few comparable municipalities our size who have tried this. And I'll just come back to my last point, is that expediency should never trump the integrity of the electoral system. I believe vote by mail, new methods of voting will come, but at this point, the issues around ensuring the integrity of the system, the credibility of the system, the fairness of the system are not there. And we should not give up a well-defined and clearly established democratic principle simply because it's easier and it saves money. I'm not in favor of this. And I would move that council receive the report and continue to monitor developments in alternate forms of voting, and to take direction from Elections Canada and Elections Ontario, which are international experts with international reputations in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion, there's a motion on the floor. Councillor Lemon.
Well, I think there have been, or I know there have been a number of municipalities who have gone to mail-in voting. It has not been the end of the world in those places. Any system is corruptible. As a case in point, and I've read this a number of times, if I want to get a fake driver's license under the name whatever, I could be Johnny McDonald, I can get one very, very quickly. If people want to corrupt the system, there is no system that I know that's absolutely perfect. The counselor alluded to that you have to produce photo ID showing residency, etc. Well, you don't need to produce your passport, which is a lot harder to fake, but is fakeable as well. Just read what some of these organizations do. I also appreciate that to find, first of all, to find locations that are completely accessible to people is becoming increasingly difficult. I'm sure Councillor Twala remembers when in federal and provincial elections, and I guess municipal as well, municipal as well, the voting places were often in private homes with a long set of stairs to climb, which excluded many of our citizens from participating in the electoral process. Vote by mail, I think, would make it more open to some of our citizens who currently do not enjoy the right because of disabilities. The other problem, and an increasingly difficult problem, we now have elections once every 4 years municipally. We used to have them every 3 years and 2 years, and actually at one time I remember every year. As a result, you don't have people who did it last year available to the clerk, who is the chief electoral official in the municipality. And it's increasingly becoming more difficult to get trained people to work in the polls. And I find out that this is not just in Owen Sound. This is a province-wide problem. Vote by mail is not perfect. However, our present system is not perfect either. If someone wants and has the resources to buy votes or have people vote illegally, they can do that under the current system we have, or by vote by mail, or possibly computer voting, which is just around the corner, I've heard. I don't know of any municipality that has gone to vote by mail which has gone back to the former system. And I don't think it's as easy to corrupt as some people may believe. Yes, there is a risk, but there's a risk crossing the street. I don't believe that we can accept that all methods that we have are static. They have to be dynamic because society is changing and has changed. In public school and high school, when studying Canadian history, we know that voting was done in a public forum, at a public meeting, and that was changed to prevent collusion and intimidation to the secret ballot. And a lot of people didn't think the secret ballot was a good idea at the time. Well, we're now changing and looking at a different method. We've been using the current method for, I guess, about 100 years. And I think this is the clerk has done an admirable job in preparing this report. And I will not support the motion which effectively kills any further looks at vote by mail. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. Elections have been the cornerstone of democracy since the Greek city-states up till now. I would hazard to guess that the integrity of the election is as paramount to a properly functioning democracy as a free press, if perhaps not even more so. I have not had the extensive familiarity with elections that Councillor Twaddle has had, but I have had quite a bit of experience with running elections, with helping out with elections, and actually being scrutineer at the federal level. There's no question that the way we run elections in Canada is expensive. No question. I guess it's the balance between that expense of knowing that we have a system that has a very high level of integrity, or an inexpensive system in which we are willing to allow a certain amount of fraud to take place. Councillor Lemon talks about how it's dangerous to cross the street. It can be if you cross a busy street in the middle of that street without looking both ways. It's a lot safer, and the integrity of you getting across that street is higher if you go to the corner and you wait for the lights and you look both ways and then proceed. And what we have done in Canada over the years is built up a very safe system in which the entire world looks to the Canadian electoral system when it's looking for a system that's virtually above reproach. It's why countries that are just beginning to take baby steps into democracy look to Canada and how we run an election, so that there aren't questions at the end about what the outcome was. So, because of my experience with elections, and because I firmly and philosophically believe that elections are the cornerstone of our democracy, I will be supporting that motion by Councillor Twaddle.
Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. I have a question. First of all, I do believe it's a federal offense to open somebody else's mail, is it not? Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, if somebody opened a ballot that came to them that wasn't theirs, and they voted on it, brought it up to you, and you stroked the name off, and then they brought their own ballot up, you would catch that, right?
If they took somebody else's ballot and brought it in, and then brought in their own ballot,
Yeah.
the system would catch it if somebody tried to vote on that first ballot, and that vote had already been cast on their behalf.
So if somebody came in and said, well, I didn't get one, and you'd say, well, yes, you did, you've already voted, something would be done, or something would have to happen.
Yeah, well, that would be an instance of mail fraud and election fraud.
Right. I was a returning officer provincially a number of years ago, so I've been through provincial election, through the whole thing, and it was fraught with problems as well. And I remember saying to myself, there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way. Although this one took place in October, and there was a freak snowstorm, and half of the voting places didn't have any power. So, I mean, these things happen, and they could happen again. I guess I feel a little bit differently about this. I think we're a city of Owen Sound with about 22,000 people and roughly 9,000 or 10,000 voters, I'm not sure. I think that there's been an explanation of a number of things here. The one that I didn't see, but that I could figure out for myself, was proxy voting. And if somebody in my household was not able to mark their own ballot, I could certainly help them mark it and see that it got marked the way they did. And I would want to say that I'm hoping most people are honest. In fact, I believe that most people are honest. So that's the way I look at it. We're not Toronto with a whole pile of immigrant people. We're a smaller community. When you take a look at the report, you can see that there are a number of communities similar size to us that are using this and are using it quite successfully. I'm prepared to give it a shot. I guess I'm also prepared to say, if it doesn't work the first time, or if we have a lot of concern over it, I'd be also prepared to say, let's go back to the old way of doing things. But I, quite frankly, am waiting for the time when we do our voting online or on machine, and we don't even have to do a mail-in ballot. And I think that that time will eventually come. And I do know that when I was returning officer, we had meetings in Toronto where we talked about different types of voting, and that they are working on different types of voting. So it is going to come at some point that changes will happen, probably slower at the federal and provincial level, but I think the changes are coming more rapidly in municipal elections. The other thing is that candidates maybe will have to work a little harder. They may have to say, go and talk to people and say, did you get your mail-in ballot in? And you can start doing that as soon as the mailing ballots go out. So there might be a little more work, but then again, it might be a little bit easier, so who knows? But I am prepared to give it a try, so if this motion is defeated, then maybe we'd put another motion on the floor.
Further discussion, Councillor Purdon.
Yes, I really appreciate Councillor Twaddle's overview and his experience leading the electoral process. And I found this a really difficult kind of thought process, because I actually really like going to polling stations, and I see it lifting us out of the ordinary. It's a special thing. On the other hand, I think a really important goal for me is to get more people voting, more people engaged, and more people participating. We share a summer house up in the township of the Archipelago, and the mail-in ballot last time allowed me to participate in that municipal process. And I really appreciate that, because I would not have trailed all the way up there in October after the cottages closed to vote. And I think the mail-in ballot does actually offer opportunities for people to participate who would find it too difficult or maybe just wouldn't get around to it. So I think mail-in vote approach is something that we should be thinking of trying.
Speakers, Councillor Body.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm stuck in this, when we go to vote in the present system, we get to bring ID, or we have to bring ID, and with a mailing system, we're not going to have the same thing, as pointed out in one of the lines here, that if any elector in Ontario is eligible to vote by mail in provincial and federal elections, the difference from the municipal election is that the application to vote by mail must be accompanied by proof of identification and address. Over the last number of years, the Law Society of Upper Canada has required that lawyers take photocopies of 2 pieces of ID, one being a photo ID for everything. If we're witnessing an affidavit, if we're doing wills, if we're doing anything like that. Mortgages are pretty clear, because it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but things that aren't worth any money, in a sense, nobody's putting money into their pocket, they're swearing something, they're swearing that what they're saying is true, they must provide me with ID so I can ensure that it's them. Applying the same principle, we have a system now that requires that. By changing, we lose that. I'm not comfortable with that. I guess I'm too well trained at my office by the Law Society, but I think it's appropriate to continue the way we're doing it and get photo ID. Thanks.
Further speakers? Councillor Lemon.
Just one question of the clerk, if I may, through you to the clerk. How long has vote by mail been going? Do we have any idea in Ontario?
Through you, Your Worship, vote by mail started in 1997.
Right. And it hasn't been the end of the world since they did it. And there are municipalities all over the province, to my knowledge, that are using it. And it's just interesting. I understand the concerns that people have, but I also have a concern for people who are housebound, people who have mobility issues, who have health issues, and the current system is not that available to them. The other problem is, in certain areas of Owen Sound, you may be very remote from the voting place, which means that a person who doesn't have a vehicle is more limited as to getting there. And I'm thinking of the Brook area, where there was, at least I got some complaints from people over the travel distances. The other thing is, the New Ontarians with Disabilities Act will require an even higher standard of accessibility than in the past. And the number of buildings that meet it in the city is limited. Thank you.
Any member of council have any additional comments or discussion on this motion? Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly, 2 comments. Councillor Lemon said that any system is corruptible, and I think that's true. Doesn't mean we should make it easier to corrupt. He also made reference to mobility issues and health issues and the ability for people to take part in the election. There are all kinds of safeguards and processes built into the traditional ballot that allow that to happen, but they don't happen on a wide scale. But you don't assume that everybody requires the special provisions. The special provisions are there for those who need them. You're right, Councillor Lemon, there are many issues. In most cases, long-term care facilities and retirement homes, election officials will go into the home and they will go, if necessary, bed to bed. And that's, I mean, those provisions are there. We shouldn't be using those isolated examples as a justification for sacrificing really the integrity of a system that has been long established.
Further discussion? Perhaps we could have the motion read aloud so we can be sure we know what we're voting on.
Oh, sorry, that's the motion we have, sorry. One moment, I have it written down.
I think I know what I said, if that's helpful.
That you move to receive the report and continue to monitor alternative voting options for future, and there was, I'm assuming
Election.
future elections. Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Oops, sorry.
Opposed? And I'm in favor. That motion passes.
Your Worship, I would like a recorded vote under the Municipal Act.
Absolutely. I'll ask the clerk to poll council,
Councillor
please.
Adair?
In favor of the motion?
Councillor Body?
In favor of the motion?
Councillor Chamberlain? Opposed. Councillor Lemon?
Opposed?
Councillor McManaman?
In favor.
Councillor Purdon? Councillor Twaddle?
In favor?
Councillor Wright? And Mayor Haswell.
In favor.
The motion passes with 5 in favor and 4 opposed.
Thank you. Okay, good discussion. On to item 12B3.
Your Worship,
Yes,
I just want to say thank council for their indulgence. This is something that I feel very passionately about, and I appreciate being listened to.
We're a flexible bunch at times. I have to say that I would expect that a report will come forward then soon with regards to exactly how the 2014 elections will be managed, and we'll look forward to that. Thank you. Thank you very much to the clerk for that report. It was very comprehensive, certainly provided a catalyst for lots of discussion and had answers to all the questions, so thank you. We have a report from our manager of revenue with regards to the 2013 tax policy and rates. Welcome, Mr. Crowder.
Thank you. I'll just hit a few of the highlights of the tax policy rate in front of you. Proposed tax changes for 2013. This is looking at total taxes between 2011 and between 2012 and 2013. And the revenue neutral changes are the apples to apples comparisons of those particular classes. So for the residential class, the average residential property in the city of Owen Sound would increase 3.15%, approximately $95 per year. Average commercial class increased 1.51%. Industrial class would drop slightly. Large industrial class would decrease just over 7%. And average multi-res building in the city would increase about 5.8%. These ratios, calculations, rates, etc., are all derived at reducing our business ratios and rates to be more in line with the county ratios and to address the disparity of what those ratios are in the city of Owen Sound compared to the rest of the province.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the manager of revenue and tax policy? Councillor Lemon.
I'm trying to remember how many years we've been working on getting this balance between the lowering our industrial rate to come more in line with other municipalities.
I think we've been working since we joined the county in 2000.
I thought we actually started before then.
And during that period of time, there's been some ups and downs that have occurred in those years. But in the last 5 years, there's been some real direction and real work from council to hit those targets.
And how far are we out of sync now with this, assuming this is approved?
So last year, there was a proposal or a plan put forth by council, a 10-year plan.
Yes.
To hit the county ratios by the year 2021. So this would be the implementation of the second year of that plan.
And my question is, the county rate, the balance that the county has, how does that compare to other municipalities in the province?
I don't have that information available in front of me. I would say that they are reasonably equitable to sort of the midpoint across the province.
Okay, thank you. That's the one thing I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Councillor Bigley.
Thank you, Mr. Crowder. Wasn't it a requirement when the city joined the county that we bring the tax rates together?
Yeah, that was part of the understanding and actually the legislation. OREG 31101, I believe, speaks to that exact point, that the city and the county ratios had to be equal, and it was the city lowering the ratios to the county.
And there's also a provincial law that ties in with regard to commercial or industrial?
The threshold or the capping?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
How's that work?
We are in line or underneath the threshold of the multi-res now. With this policy, we'll be under that threshold for the commercial, and we still have some work to do on the residential side.
So we're working towards what's required by the province as well as our agreement of going back to the county 10 years ago or whatever it is now.
Correct.
Good, thank you.
Further discussion? Questions? Councillor Dare.
I was going to move the recommendation, Your Worship. We've basically entered an undertaking when we joined the county to bring our rates for industrial and large industrial down to their rates, and we have some other pressures from the province to do likewise. So I think in year 2 of a 10-year plan is not the time to reverse what we've been doing.
Further discussion? Thank you very much, Mr. Crowder. I think one line in here is particularly notable for many people, and that is that on average, a residential homeowner in Owen Sound, the 3.15% tax change is really an amount of $95 annually. And I think when it's put in those terms, to maintain the level of service that the city provides is arguably a reasonable amount. Thank you for your work on this. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have don't go away. We have a report on water and wastewater rates. Thank you.
So water and wastewater rates for 2013, 2014. Some of the highlights from the report are, in following the provincial legislation in 2011, we completed a water and wastewater financial plan. In those financial plans, it was addressed that we needed to increase our water rates by approximately 10% on an annual basis, and our wastewater rates at 11% on an annual basis, just to cover the ongoing capital costs, aging infrastructure, etc. So this report looks at utilizing those increased rates, and it also looks at the fact that we see a steady decrease on an annual basis due to overall consumption levels. So for 2013, 2014, we've introduced a plan and rates that would look at increasing water and wastewater revenues by 10% and also factoring in a 2% overall decrease in consumption. We've also looked at moving to a 2-block system from a 4-block system that will allow for, I guess, greater transparency in the bills, easier for the end user to understand.
Councillor Lemon, thank you.
One of the questions I've got is, there is a fixed amount that every homeowner is charged, or building owner, property owner, and then there's the variable amount based on consumption. I believe that we should be working that it's a consumptive tax, not, and I'm wondering where is, of the increased revenue, how is it being distributed between the two?
So through you, Your Worship, we've looked at the rates and we've increased them 50% on the consumption and 50% on the user side. Keeping in mind that 85% of our costs are fixed and only 15% of our costs are variable.
To me, I understand the fixed costs being a larger percentage, but I also believe that those that don't use a lot should not necessarily be paying a disproportionate amount. And I realize the 50-50 split, I can understand your logic on that, but I can also believe that we should be employing more of a cost to the consumptive side than the fixed side.
And through you, Your Worship, we're going to be looking at those types of comments and addressing those in a more comprehensive report to Financial Advisory Committee later in the year, looking at our rate structure, how that's calculated, where our expenses are, etc. So some more thorough analysis and detail will be coming forward in the 2013 year.
Councillor Dare.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship. I certainly look forward to at least one of my utility bills being easy to understand.
We should maybe revisit that.
It's a radical concept.
Thank you for your report. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report about a clock. This isn't just any clock. The City Hall clock. The City Hall Memorial Tower, nonetheless.
Which has been clockless for how long?
The first clock.
It's a timeless kind of place.
That's right, twice a day.
Councillor Twaddle, do share your thoughts.
Thank you, Your Worship. I remember sitting in a budget meeting in the Bay Shore, and we found we had $10,000 left in the capital budget that wasn't attributed, and I said, I'd like to see that $10,000 spent on having a clock at City Hall that was right more than twice a day. And so I'm pleased to move that we award this clock to Georgian Bay Sign Works at a cost of $9,873, which is $117 still left in the capital budget. Now, does that include tax? I'm not sure.
With HST, it's over.
Okay. Councillor Dare.
I was just going to say, Your Worship, I certainly support the motion, but the first clock that the town of Sydenham put up went for years without saying more than, being correct more than twice a year, as they waited for all of the mechanisms and fittings and the bells to come over from England. So I think we've been following in a tradition that was started many, many decades ago with the founding of our community.
Councillor Purdon.
I am in support of the motion, but want to be sure to note that there is a benefactor who has made a contribution of $8,000 towards this clock, so it's not our capital funds that are paying for it, but somebody who probably, like many of us, just wanted to be able to look at the clock and know what time of day it was.
And put his money where his watch is.
Put his money where his watch is. So
yes, indeed.
The accurate time of day.
Very, very appreciative of that generous contribution by a local resident. So I thank you. Thank you for mentioning that, Councillor Purdon. I have to say that the face of the clock, I remember Councillor Twaddle saying something about a picture of me on the face of the clock, but I'm not seeing that. And I probably think that's
not too late, Your Worship.
What's that?
Not too late.
Not too late. Yeah, no, that's good. I like that, the look of the face just the way it is. Thanks. Councillor McMahon.
Thank you, Worship. Just to clarify that, which face of the clock are we looking at?
This one.
Which one? Oh, your face. Oh. Well, then I'm in favor of.
Well, I think it's the one with a little star behind it.
Is that
in the third column
is
on
the
the
one?
right-hand side.
That
And I
is
expect if
correct.
the gentleman who's donating the money likes that one, then we all like that one. Councillor Chamberlain.
Do we have a timeline on this? Because we'll get asked.
Quarter past whatever time you think. It will be immediately following the completion of the Owen Sound City Council chambers.
We done in a very timely manner, Your Honor.
In the good weather. Yes. As my niece said, quarter past whatever time you think.
At least it's not a sundial.
We could have a sundial.
Time's a wasting, Your Worship. Can we vote, please?
Would you like to? Yes. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And congratulations, we have a new clock coming at City Hall.
It's only taken how many years?
Tick-tock, tick-tock.
Point of order, Your Worship. I did not declare a pecuniary interest on this item at the beginning, and I would like to do so now as it relates to my employer.
Okie dokie. World Fiddle Day. We have a report. Thank you to the Director of Community Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to let council know that I have had confirmation today from a reliable source that the Georgian Bay Symphony has stepped forward to cover the cost of the $30 rental, as well as to provide insurance for the city to cover this event. So essentially, the report's not necessary.
Well, congratulations. Thank you, actually. Thank you to staff. I know this took some time.
Sorry, I guess we could have direction on garbage and recycling if council so wished, but.
What's council's direction? Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, I think this is going to bring people into the core of the city, do the tourism thing, so we should certainly provide them with adequate garbage and recycling containers.
That's the motion. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. To the director, many events take care of their own garbage. We don't, sorry, that's my question. Aren't there many events that take care of their, notice earlier, Summerfolk, we passed an agreement with them. They're responsible to take care of their own waste.
That's correct, Your Worship. We can provide recycling bins at no charge, but generally there is a cost for garbage pickup, a minimum of 4 barrels. It's $100 for the barrels and the disposal of the garbage. But if it's council's direction, as this is a first-year event, to provide that, certainly the park staff can do that.
My point being, good if they took care of it themselves, could they have taken care of them?
Oh.
Like some of the other events.
Garbage away, certainly, yep.
I mean, obviously, if it became a problem, we'd have to monitor it, but they're not having a concession at this event, or doesn't speak to it?
No.
Anyway, that would just be one thought. Perhaps they could just be instructed that they have to have volunteers that pick up the garbage and take care of their own garbage, like many events do.
Seems like a reasonable request. Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, the reason I moved that is there are a lot of times when the cost of garbage, whatever that may be, is not singled out. As an example, the hottest yard sale downtown, the garbage bins get extremely full, and we don't charge the DIA. Along the harbor walls, we don't charge the fishermen. I think you'd find the majority of cases, these people are not operating a food booth. So the amount of garbage we're dealing with is minimal, and let's try to encourage events. Let's stop putting roadblocks. It may cost the city $100. Wow. How much household garbage do we pick up in the garbage bins we have through the downtown and other areas of the city? Quite a bit.
Further discussion to the motion? To the motion, all those in favor?
Can I get a clarification on the motion?
Sure.
I was going to ask for clarification.
Clarification on the motion. Councillor Lemon, could you just restate your motion?
My motion was that the provision of garbage containers and recycling containers be undertaken by the city at no cost to the World Fiddle Day organizers for this year.
Okay, everybody clear on that? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you for your report on that. We have an application for rezoning number 60 to number 80 9th Street East. This is a technical report with regards to the former Todd's building. I might ask if staff could just give a brief overview of this report for council, and then we will proceed with the recommendation.
Thank you, Worship. The city has received an application from a numbered company for a rezoning at the property known as the Todd's Building and the former Thompson Furniture Building on First Avenue West. The application was received in November and then deemed complete on April 9th. I think an important date to keep in mind going forward is that the public meeting will be part of our next council meeting on May the 6th. The property is designated downtown commercial or core commercial, and then zoned C1 as well as hazard in the city's zoning bylaw. The proposal really is to take the former Thompson Furniture Building and remove the top level from the ground up on the water side. There's a significant part of the building. It would have a retaining wall system built inside of the building. The brick, the wooden floors, the trusses would be retained for reuse. That would be filled with structural fill and form the floor of an indoor parking area. The former Todd's part of the building would have the roof removed, the insides primarily taken out, new helical piles put in to support the building, and then it would be proposed to be 6 stories in height. There'd be a small area for commercial use on the main floor with between 25 and 29 residential condominiums on the rest of the building. There is a proposed green roof on the Todd's building and a portion of the parking structure. A number of supporting documents were received with the application, including a shadowing study, servicing feasibility, hydrology and hydraulic evaluations, scope traffic impact study, stormwater management, geotech, as well as planning justification report. And summaries of those are provided in the report. And I would note for any of the public who are interested, full copies of those are available at City Hall or on the for review if anyone wants to see those. The report provides a summary of the policy context to provide that context for council to consider going forward, public comments as well as comments received from the different agencies. Specifically, in terms of the rezoning, the application will recognize some of the existing deficiencies because 2 lots will be merged, so some legal non-conforming statuses will be lost. So that deals with rear yard, exterior side yard, and interior side yard. It proposes to increase the maximum building height, provide some relief with respect to a 1.5 meter wide planting strip that's required, and provide an exemption to the requirement for a certain amount of commercial space on the main floor, as well as allow a small encroachment of the reconfigured Thompson Furniture Building slightly further into the hazard. So in terms of next steps, the application has been circulated. Public meeting is scheduled for May the 6th. Certainly council will hear from the public. We'll have agency comments at that time, and then there will be a subsequent report coming back to council. I know the consultant from Cuesta Planning is still here, and I'm certain they'll be attending the public meeting as well.
Thank you very much, and thank you for this very comprehensive report. It's appreciated. We have a few speakers. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. Just briefly, I had a question, but Ms. Coulter just answered it about there's been some concern about the heritage nature of this building. From what I just heard from her, though, the majority of the building is being retained in its and adaptively reused. So that's great. I think this is an incredibly exciting proposal for our downtown, and I'd be happy to move this recommendation. We move forward to a public meeting.
We have a motion, Councillor Purdon.
Well, I was going to make the motion, but Councillor McManaman beat me to it. So I think we're all very excited about this development in the downtown, and it's good to see all the planning moving forward, so I'm certainly in support of the motion.
Councillor Lemon.
Just have one question. What's a helical pile?
Yes, this is something we can explain.
I'm just curious.
This is a very,
I've
very
heard the
good
term
question,
before.
Councillor Lemon.
We all know what that means.
Helical pile, a standard pile would be driven in the ground almost like a nail. A helical pile is more like a screw. It's probably the best way to describe it.
Like an Ardox nail?
Yep.
Fine, thank you. I just wanted to know. I'd never heard the term before.
I'm not going to do anything with that. Councillor Body.
Thank you, Worship. As you're aware, at our Economic Development Committee meeting the other day, we had a presentation by Mr. Peary and by his condo marketing specialist who's done condos all over North America. Their plan will be, I think, moving forward in the next couple of months. It's a very impressive presentation to us. This fits in so much with what we're trying to do in economic development. Over the last couple of years, we've concentrated on our business retention and attraction plan. We're still moving forward with that, although a lot of it is done. Over the next couple of years, we want to start to focus on attracting and building assessment in Owen Sound and getting people to move into our area. young professionals, the creative industries, as well as the post-war baby boom, which is, we discussed at the meeting, is a huge market because they hold all the wealth. And it's important to attract them to our town as they're being attracted to every other town. The plan is really impressive.
Further discussion to the motion? Councillor Wright.
Yes, and I probably had my hand up earlier to move the motion too. I think it's just a great project. This project is bringing as much excitement to the downtown community as Winners did to the outside. So you can see that little different clientele maybe, but this is really a much talked about project coming into the city, and I know that our staff and we ourselves will do everything we can to make this project work. So I'm excited about it. I think it's great.
Councillor Chamberlain.
I would just like to say that the name of this is the Sydenham, and when people are talking about Winners and the Sydenham together, it's pretty neat, and I'm pretty excited about it as well.
There's some tremendous activity happening, and it's refreshing to see us turn that corner. Councillor Lemon.
It will be the only condominium I know in Ontario where you can stick a fishing rod out your window and catch a 20-pound salmon.
I do it.
Think about it, wonderful combination.
Okay, I've thought about it long enough. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you for the report. That is an exciting project and an incredible, as I've said many times, a game changer for our community and for the city, as is our great development that we see on 16th Street as well. The city of Barrie is doing their level best to attract exactly this type of development, and dare I say, we've kind of headed them off at the pass. So let's keep that up. Congratulations to staff as well on moving this forward. We have a report from Manager of Public Works with regards to our asset management plan update. Mr. McRoberts, you could give us a brief overview of that report, please.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. Just to give a quick update, the asset management plan is being implemented. Certainly, Phase 1 consists of incorporating roads, bridges, culverts, sanitary and water and storm projects or infrastructure. That is basically being done as a Phase 1, simply from the standpoint that is the priority that's implemented by the province in order to get funding through the Municipal Infrastructure Investment Initiative. So that needs to be complete by the end of the year, so that is Phase 1. Phase 2 will ultimately look at other assets, which we do have, for the most part, have already inventoried, and then can incorporate them into the asset management plan as well. So as of the end of January, the State of Infrastructure RFP was issued. It was awarded by Council on March 18th. On March 19th, we met with the consultant to have the kickoff meeting. They are proceeding with the work. In fact, probably as you speak, you might notice some staff, some of the consultant staff out on our city roads doing their inspections and their inventory work, as well as through a separate contract, we have Veolia out there doing some work on our sanitary sewer system and doing that inventory. So that work will all come together ultimately at the end of August. Then staff will be basically looking at preparing the financial aspects of that asset management plan. Simultaneously, over the next couple of months, one of the items that will be completed, we already have our inventory for our bridges and culverts, so we will go through the process of actually doing a pilot study on our asset management plan development through the use of the bridges and culverts to see how the process will work, and then we'll implement that, and we'll bring, likely probably at the end of, I'm going to say the end, sometime in June, we'll bring back to council sort of a draft of how that looked and how that worked.
Thank you. Any discussion on this? We have a motion to receive. Councillor Purdon? Thanks very much. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We have a report from the engineering assistant with regards to the Heart and Stroke. The big bike ride on May the 9th. An additional route has been added. Councillor Wright.
I'll move the recommendation that the Heart and Stroke Foundation can host the annual big bike ride and to use 16th Avenue East from Heritage Place Mall et cetera, and that approval be conditional upon the usual things.
All those in favor? Yes, that's carried, thank you. We have a series of 5 minutes of boards and committees for approval. Council's direction.
Gosh, I hope they're...
Councilor Purdon.
Approval of the minutes from the committees?
Councilor Adair.
Your Worship, just on the bylaw committees, I wanted to bring council's attention to, the SPCA report. We had a very full presentation from the OSPCA, the Ontario Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. As of the 1st of June, they will no longer be in Gray and Bruce. If you see an animal in distress, a dog that's been tied up, you want to report a puppy mill, etc., if you call them, you will get an answering machine telling you to call your local police department. Owen Sound, because we have our own police department and we also have our own animal control, people are in a, probably of all the municipalities in Grey County, in a unique position to take on this extra responsibility. But the bylaw committee did feel that we as a council should draw attention to Grey County Council that this is something that really should be at the county level, particularly around the issue of puppy mills. There was a time when Grey County was the puppy mill capital of Ontario, and I would much rather have Grey County known for its beautiful waterfalls and its great agricultural produce than being the puppy mill capital of Ontario. There are issues, I think, for some of the lower tier municipalities. This is going to be a significant burden. They may not realize that yet, but from the information we were able to ascertain, once the calls start coming in, they need to be acted upon, and it will be a burden on all of the lower tier. And I believe that it really is a matter that the county should take some consideration to taking on at the county level.
Thank you. Councilor Wright.
Thank you very much, and the county did discuss this issue just at some length, and the 9 municipalities that belong to the county feel that they can handle it themselves because they have the law enforcement in their county, in their municipality, where the county does not have law enforcement. They're already set up to monitor bylaws. They don't feel that this is going to put any extended weight or concern on their municipalities or on the bylaws, and they have no concern about taking control and looking after the SPCA situation at all, that they'll be able to handle it. So that's where the situation is and with the county.
Further discussion to any of these boards and committees minutes? No further discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion is carried. 2 sets of in-camera minutes for approval. Councillor McManaman is moving approval. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. I never assume anything. Okay, we have a few people who have items of other business, and I will go to Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Just very briefly, 2 weeks ago, I wasn't at council. I was in Toronto on your behalf as part of the Georgian Bay Leaders Initiative around low water levels in the Great Lakes and the impact, the economic impact that that is having this summer. Certainly, the closing of the East Side boat launch in Owen Sound last week is one example of that. With some other mayors from around Georgian Bay, we met with Andrea Horvath and the NDP members of the NDP caucus in Queen's Park. We met with members of the PC caucus in Queen's Park, and then we had a meeting with policy advisors from the Premier's office, where we had an opportunity to explain the impact that low water levels is having on Georgian Bay. We were well received by both the NDP and the PC caucuses, as you can imagine. That's their role. The policy advisors to the Premier listened respectfully and seemed to understand the issues that we were raising. Of course, it's not their job to promise us any relief, and so that didn't happen. I received tonight, when I came to council, a copy of the letter that Andrea Horwath wrote to Premier Wynne following the meeting, and I'll give this to the clerk and ask that it just be copied as part of the correspondence package for the next time. She really just was supporting the position of the Georgian Bay Leaders Initiative and asking for the province to step up and provide some support, and also to help persuade the federal government to do that. I believe that there was also a letter from Bill Walker, our local MPP, who attended the meeting with the PC caucus. It was an interesting day, and I'm not sure at the end of the day how much political impact we will have, but certainly the municipalities around Georgian Bay have put together a compelling case for, not to bring back the water, because that's way beyond, that's an international issue and way beyond the scope of local municipalities, but to make sure that the people who make their living from and enjoy the use of Georgian Bay have the ability to continue to do that this year.
Thank you very much for that overview, and certainly appreciate the time you're taking to represent us at that group. There will be a meeting early in June. More information will be coming forward. It's a public meeting at the Bayshore Community Center with regards to the low lake levels in Georgian Bay, and a number of the mayors from the communities around Georgian Bay will be in attendance, as well as Mayor Anderson from the town of the Blue Mountains will be speaking, and we should have a very full discussion at that time. So thank you, Councillor Twaddle, for that overview. We've recently learned that the low lake levels may have an impact on the beginning of the sailing season for the Chichimon. So we are beginning to really see, and I believe we'll feel in a financial manner, the impacts of the low lake levels right here. So thank you for your attendance at those important discussions. Councillor Chamberlain.
Yes, mine is asking council for some support around the Owen Sound and Area Senior Center. The McQuay Tannery site is municipally owned, as everyone knows, and that group has been very fortunate this year to receive some funding, and they're going forward with some great plans. One of the applications they would like to put in, though, is with the Community Foundation for to replenish all the card tables and for the things that they're doing there. So they are not allowed as a non-charitable group to actually receive the check, but the city could receive it on their behalf and give it to them. It's the kind of thing that we have done in the past, and so I think the motion is just to I'm not sure what the motion is. The motion is to receiving that check on their behalf if they happen to be awarded that check.
I think
We'll go to the Director of Community Services for a little fine-tuning.
I think we may have made a similar recommendation to council in the past. I know the timing is short, and I think the resolution would be that council supports the Owen Sound and Area Senior Center in making an application for the funding, and that we would have a resolution supporting that application because the city owns the building.
This is not an unusual request from the group. That's your motion?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor McManaman. Oh, you're ready to vote. Very good. The McQuay Tannery Senior Center and Volunteer Center is doing great guns. They really are moving forward, and they're to be congratulated. They started on shaky ground, and they've built something very solid, has a real future. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Any other members of council? Remind council, this Saturday morning behind City Hall is the Earth Day cleanup, and it's an opportunity to pick up some refuse that may have surfaced over the long winter. Thank you. All those in favor? Thank you. Resolution adopting proceedings in committee of the whole, please.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Body, that the action taken in committee of the whole in considering public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business be hereby confirmed by this council.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. New business by resolution. Bylaws, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Body, that bylaws number 2013-66 to 2013-82 inclusive be hereby passed and enacted.
All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. And the next time, I do want to remind everyone to help Hillcrest School by voting. When you go home, vote daily, actually. This is a very timely topic for tonight. At MAJESTA.com. This will help the kids get the outdoor learning centers that they're looking for. So, MAJESTA.com. Happy to help community groups and kids. That's what we're about. We're adjourned. Thank you. Day after tomorrow.